Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running and nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, be it on IRN, be it on the podcast, be it on the video, be it on the radio, however you're listening to Computer America, welcome into the program. We are happy to have you, and we are happy to say that we have a great show planned for you today, where, given any time, we'll do computer and technology news, a lot of different articles and things that we need to catch up on. And of course, just to give you a little behind the scenes, we are working on some reviews. We have a review of a new Acer monitor, so check out the website here in a couple of days. We'll let you know when it's up. And hey, if you're considering about buying anything, reviews are the best. Being able to see people's third parties' opinions, super important, and you should definitely check that out. But on today's show, that's on the website, that's for future reference, but on today's show, we have none other than a service called Bluume, and we're going to be talking about their newest application, their newest product called Business Warrior. If you haven't heard about that, you've come to the right place. This is going to be a lot of fun. And hey, check it out here in just a moment. But first things first, computeramerica.com. It will have the show notes, link to our guest website. It will have any articles that we mention, any products that we mention. Anything and everything can be found at computeramerica.com. Find us on social media. Check out the podcast, which is just today's show, rebroadcast as a podcast if you can't catch today's live show, and more. So that's for the morning announcements. Let's go ahead and just get started here again with our guest. And as I said before, company Bluume, Bluume. We have none other than CEO Mr. Rhett Doolittle here on Computer America with us, and he's here to tell us all about the company, what they do, how they do it, and of course about Business Warrior. So if you are starting a business, if you are trying to optimize traffic, if you're trying to really get your name out there and really make a name for yourself, it can be hard, it can be complicated, and it especially if it's your first time, there's so many different things pulling you so many different ways. I think Business Warrior is going to be a very interesting product for you to hear about. So let's go ahead, bring him on. Once again, everyone, we will be talking to none other than Rhett Doolittle. Rhett, welcome on to Computer America. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. And before we get started, why don't we go ahead and get a little bit of background on Bluume, the company. When did you guys get started? And a little bit of background on yourself. Have you always been in technology? What is your background?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for 13 plus years. So this is my third startup. In the peak, I've reached number 18 on the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in the United States. Right. Number 1 in Arizona. So been through the trenches. It's not always been easy like everybody can experience. And launched Bluume in 2014, so 5+ years now. And really, exactly what you said in the beginning in your opening there. People starting a business or running a business or anything like that. It becomes really, really difficult. But the one thing that we know is when business owners or entrepreneurs are passionate and they're energetic and they get their team and they get the team excited and they're listening and they're paying attention to reviews and they're firing all cylinders, that's when they're successful and things are going well. But when they're overwhelmed and they don't know how to handle technology and computer decisions and every new dashboard and everything else getting thrown at them, they just get lost and they get down, and it just kind of snowballs from there. So, when we launched Bluume in 2014, we started out as a marketing agency, and then we morphed into launching our own software, which is called Business Warrior. And what that really does is it takes everything that a business owner or operator, anybody running a business, and really just tries to simplify their life. So it's everything from advertising, marketing, social media, SEO, reputation, and it really simplifies that down, and all those thousands of data points and all these crazy dashboards that can use them, and just simplifies them down to a simple priority list. So,
and by the way, sorry to jump in here on you, but we're going to be talking extensively about Business Warrior and what it does and how it works. But let's give people the case scenario for because we actually do have a lot of small medium business that listens to the show, and I got to say I really do like having entrepreneurs on the show like yourself, because so many of our listeners are going through the exact same thing, and we're going to pick your brain on that as well. But before Business Warrior, what was kind of the go-to strategy? Was this you had to hire a firm to do this for you? Did you have to hire some kind of marketing department? Of course. What was the strategy before all of this?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. It was, I think we were kind of typical to, every business owner out there. It was trying everything. It was teaching myself and staying up late at night, watching YouTube channels and training myself, hiring outside firms, trying to figure out things like Google Analytics and other dashboards, and just felt like I was just getting nowhere and spending more time and money, and was inconsistent. And, just hated wasting so much time when I just wanted to get back to, focusing on my clients and developing products that work for them instead of all this other stuff, which I think a lot of business owners go through.
I gotcha. And of course, and then you decided, if I spend all this time, I can probably save other people some time and simplify it. And for anyone out there watching the video portion, we have your website up in the background. So we're going to be showing, your website and the applications as we kind of talk about them. Business Warrior, as you said, it kind of puts all of this in one nice big dashboard and helps people. And you're going to have to, maybe kind of walk us through downloading the app and starting to use it. But I'm guessing it gives you some kind of checklist followed by, some kind of walkthroughs and things like that for different aspects. Let's just say someone is listening. They decide Business Warrior. This sounds interesting. We're going to go download it. You have a free trial here that I see. Walk us through, I guess kind of getting started with Business Warrior.
Yeah, we started out with what we call as a growth score. So if they just put in some basic information like find their business and their address and their email, and then we're going to pull all the public information about them. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of this data out there is public about them. And so when they start, they don't have to give us anything. We don't ask them for any money. It's just try to make it really, really simple and say, hey, this is how, just from public data, this is how your business looks from a growth perspective. And then we'll give them like their top 4 things that they should focus on. And that would be 4 things in, either SEO, reputation management, social media, or, online and local listings. So it really simplifies it. Instead of like trying to give them a dashboard with like all this data, we're trying to say, hey, from what we know about you in the public, here's the 4 things you should really focus on.
Right. So let's go ahead and just ask, what kind of business best benefits from Business Warrior? Because I see here that things like increase profits and revenue, which is great. Any business that's a business is going to really appreciate that. But you have things like foot traffic and reputation. Sometimes, let's say you're maybe like some kind of manufacturing business or something. That's not really going to apply as much to you. What kind of businesses does Business Warrior really excel in, or is there any kind of specialty that you recommend?
Right now, any business that has a brick and mortar location that has the actual physical storefront, we came out of beta just a few weeks ago, so within the next few months, we'll have a lot more e-commerce tools and connections to Amazon and stuff. So people with more of an online selling focus is coming, but right now, really, the brick and mortar guys.
No, it's very, very, of course, interesting, and great to hear that just out of beta, just launching your product, and you still have plans for so much more, which is great to hear. Your job is never done. Let's talk about these 4 different things and tell us why it's important to really get a handle on these 4 different things, kind of individually. A business's reputation, I've been seeing commercials everywhere lately about, kind of reputation management, reputation repairing. I guess by reputation, you would mean online reviews through Google, I'm sure Facebook, anywhere, or Yelp, or any of these other things. How important is having a good reputation? And beyond that, what can you really do to kind of fix that? Is that something that, you give within the app tips or things like that? Or do you actually have someone, I don't say physically, but do you actually have a representative work with them to fix their reputation?
So, yeah, both. So first, reputation is everything. You got to get reviews, got to respond to the bad reviews. The great thing is if you respond unemotionally to a bad review and just look at it from the perspective of, from the client's eyes, that they're right, then a lot of times they'll commiserate with you and they'll take it down or they'll improve it and things like that. So you got to respond to the bad ones, got to promote the good ones, got to promote getting more reviews all the time, 100%.
I got you.
And then within our tool, we're pulling all that in. We exactly like you said, the most important ones are Yelp, Facebook, and Google right now. We're getting a lot of other data points, but those have the highest effect on their score. And then and then we'll give them recommendations if they want to do it themselves. And then they can also click on buttons and then within the tool, and then we'll get notified and we'll reach out to them and try to help them do it for them.
Very, very cool. And trust me, as someone who's waded into that part of a business, it can get very daunting. And I guess if you don't know where to start, you take everything personally. So especially when in a business, you have to take it very impersonally. Even bad reviews are still helpful, and critical reviews are still helpful. But it's easy to take it very critically and just shut the whole thing down and say, I'm not even going to worry about that right now. But that is clearly the opposite of what you should do. So let's see. So some of these other ones, let's go ahead and jump over to website SEO. Back in the day, this used to be super simple. You would just go into the back end of your website, put in a bunch of words that really didn't mean anything, and hey, you might come up sooner in a Google search. Website SEO, is that something that, okay, this is going to be a very weird question, but does website SEO still work, and do you recommend it?
Yes, and that's the thing about the way we built Business Warrior. It's like it takes a warrior to really run a business, and it also takes you, all this stuff is related. So, and the biggest, I think, with any business is being consistent on everything. So website SEO really works, but you got to be consistent. You can't go once every 6 months and update your website and post 5 new blogs and then expect that you're going to all of a sudden be on page 1 of Google.
Right.
Which is the same with everything. You got to be consistent with the reviews. You got to be consistent with updating your website and posting regular content. You got to be consistent with making sure your local listings and your online listings are accurate and they're getting the updated data. So if you're doing all of this stuff very regularly, then growth is easy, and that's what it's about. People think that they can just really put a lot of time and teach themselves that in one night and then post a bunch of social media ads and all this business is going to come rolling in. But it's just like you said, it's not that easy anymore, and the key is just doing a little bit every day.
And really, I guess that's where Business Warrior steps in, because you said something way at the beginning that I think a lot of people who run businesses really feel in their heart, which is they're not tech people. They're in most industries. If you're trying to run I saw somewhere on your app here, Corner Deli. If you are trying to run a deli, you are trying to deal with customers face to face, dealing with the back end, dealing with the website, dealing with the technology side. that's something that you have to do. That's something you don't want to do. So spending hours a day optimizing your SEO, or spending hours a day fixing your reputation, or increasing your reputation, these are things that I guess people really wouldn't do. I'm hoping and assuming Business Warrior does not take hours a day.
No, it doesn't take hours, and right now it's $29 a month, so it's like so cheap.
Not bad.
And and it should just give them, and it gets more advanced. So in the beginning, we start out with really, really simple recommendations, because there's just really simple, low-hanging fruit on most of these businesses on things that they can do. And then as they start improving and they start checking off things off the list, it gets more and more advanced, and then their results get better, and then it should be easier. And really, our hope is that the business owner uses this tool and looks at it every day, and then it's like out of sight, out of mind. I know business warriors, they're watching these 4 areas for me. I'm checking things off the list. I can go and focus on whatever I'm passionate about, whether it's making sandwiches or ordering new products or being a veterinarian or whatever else it is.
Right. So we have this question here, and I'm actually kind of curious on this because I've never run a franchise before, but I assume that, running a franchise within a larger corporate entity can seem a little kind of like, why am I doing this? Especially if, let's say, you run Subway or something, whatever franchise you can think of, any or at least most kinds of personal self-promotion, reputation management, things like that, are going to seem a little overshadowed by a much larger corporate presence. Is Business Warrior going to help someone who maybe operates a franchise, and why would they download this tool for that?
Yeah, so it's great because it helps the franchisor and the franchisee. So we actually have some specific reporting tools for the corporate entity that's the franchisor. So it holds both parties accountable. If a franchisee is paying, for certain services out of their franchise fees that they're expecting, then they can use Business Warrior to watch those things and make sure they're being handled. And then vice versa. A lot of times the franchisor is expecting each individual location to do certain things, and there's lots of it'd be crazy because it's crazy to watch, because we've done this where they have a franchise that has over 1,000 locations, and if everybody's following the playbook that they put in place, which is why you would want a franchise, then a lot of the results they shouldn't vary too much. So why does one location have a 2.5-star rating and one have 4.5 star?
Right.
If a lot of the other things are very simple. Well, they're not doing something. So our tool gives them a simple way they can look at all 1,000 locations, find those outliers, and then dig in to see what is happening to why they're doing it differently, and then quickly fix it. And then same thing at the individual location level as well. But They found that to do this before, they were using, 6-7 different tools, trying to hodgepodge it together, trying to mash reporting together in different regions, and it was just a nightmare. And so now it's one tool, pinpoint exactly what's going on, save a bunch of time, and really fix the problem for the franchisee very quickly.
Yeah, very, very, very important to do that, and I'm glad that you're able to get to that level. Let's go ahead and talk about something here, and I found it here on the website. For anyone out there who wants to go check it out, Bluume.com, Bluume, just want to really drive that in there. Bluume.com, survey small business owners, and yeah, you have a new survey. You just recently launched some data that you collected on, I guess, I don't want to say the word sordid, but the interesting, secretive life of small business owners. And I definitely like hearing about this, because small business owners, they are, they're just everyday people, but they're people that suddenly take on a lot of responsibility. They've really taken on the best and the worst of kind of business life. Talk about this report. What did you do to kind of collect the data for this report, and any key findings that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, I think the one common thing we found is just, there's just so many distractions out there for business owners. But they're normal people, and we all have normal stuff going on, like, dating and their lives get mixed and matched into one. So like an interesting data point was what percentage, I think it was around 30% of male business owners had dated a customer of theirs in the past. So you can, that just shows how much these business owners of their time is spent at the business. So it all kinds of just becomes one life. So it's like they have distractions, and we found the typical stats around how much time they're spending on social media and technology and who they're using for that stuff. But then it was just really interesting on some of these different wild stats about what they're doing in their personal lives. But they're really just like us, and they're just trying to live their life passionately and have a good time and be successful at the same time.
So I guess with the survey, and really what, to draw a connection back to what we've been talking about, is that, and I've just been, reading it while we were talking here, including the fact that so many small business owners actually book events or, take friends to other small businesses to, either their own or help other people out, really just kind of highlight that they're always thinking about their business, their other, their friends' businesses. They're dating at their business. They are spending an hour and a half, 1 to 4 hours a day managing social media. And I guess that's the need you are trying to fix, is that managing social media, it's important, being able to connect with your customers and having that open form of communication is important. It can be very helpful, just like having passion and spending time at the business. But it's not healthy, I guess, at some point to, run your business for 8 to 12 hours a day and then spend 1 to 4 hours managing social media. And then, if you're lucky, you get some sleep in the middle.
Exactly.
That's the need that Social Warrior, or Business Warrior is really trying to accomplish, is that you can do all these things and you can do them better in less time.
Yes.
I gotcha.
It really revolves. Have you read the book or heard of it, The One Thing? I know it's a pretty popular book right now.
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay. It's a great one, but it's really about, like, in life, tackling each day just what's the highest priority item in your life or in business each day. Mm-hmm. And we get all these other distractions and things like that, and then we miss the most important things. And so Business Warrior kind of follows that concept. But yes, exactly. If they're spending 4 hours on social media and they're at the store for 10, 12 hours, they're spending a third of their time on social media because they're trying to figure it out. Are they really tackling the highest priority item, in those hours, or are they missing it? So then when you go to sleep at night, how do you feel when you wasted all this time on social media instead of tackling the most important thing on the business? So Business Warrior makes that really, really obvious on what's the highest priority thing kind of in each category of, SEO, social listings and stuff like that.
So now it's time to get, maybe a little bit more personal here and ask you for some personal advice. The holidays are quickly approaching, and with that comes the busy season for many small businesses. Obviously, this is the make or break time for so many businesses out there that, this is when consumers have been saving all year and they're going out with a fistful of cash, and they're looking to enjoy themselves. They're looking to buy something good, and essentially commerce goes up. So let's go ahead and ask you, do you have any tips for small businesses that can stay ahead instead of falling behind during the busy season? Because again, you're going to be spending more and more time, so you have less time to do everything that already takes you so much time to do.
Yeah. Now's the time to clean it all up, because we got this in the past when we were in a marketing agency a lot. People would come to us in late November, like Thanksgiving time, or even mid-December, right before holiday, the peak of shopping. And it's like we can't save you now. It doesn't. You're way late in the game. But now it's October. There's time. So updating the website, making sure everything's accurate, getting some regular social posting, focusing on good reviews, responding to the negative ones and trying to get them removed, getting everything kind of cleaned up now, because this stuff, even if you got it cleaned up, in the ninth inning, it takes the web and everything else to crawl this stuff and take effect. And so it's just going to be too late, even if you're successful in doing it in the ninth hour. So if they do it now, they'll be prepped. They won't have that anxiety that it's hanging over their head. And, then they'll be ready for the season coming. And we got Halloween shopping now.
Mm-hmm.
You got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas and New Year's. Most of the weather around the country is in a good spot right now. So now's the time to, put in the work and get all these aspects of the business cleaned up, organized, and putting in a plan to be consistent through the end of the year, which we can help with.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And of course, we're going to, we're going to talk about the free trial here in just a little bit to, maybe help you stay consistent, over the next month or so. But I wanted to, we have a couple more questions here. And one of them, though, is just kind of the space that you're operating in. I think you just mentioned that you used to be an advertising agency or a marketing agency, which, hey, you still are. It's just that you've added more to your skill set, which is great. Like I said, I've seen commercials for similar, or not really similar products, but I've seen commercials for services that do each one of the different areas that you work in. This is getting very, very popular. Obviously, maybe 20 years ago, you could operate a brick and mortar store and you didn't have any need for an online website other than, maybe here's our menu, here's our shop, here's our location, here's our phone number, anything else, come in the store and talk to us. Now we see that social media and websites drive foot traffic. They are not just complimentary, but they're mandatory for many, many businesses out there to, really compete with other businesses, because trust me, the other small businesses next to you, they're doing it. If you aren't doing it, they're probably doing it, and it has an effect. What are you expecting to see with this whole, I guess, kind of merging of the internet with, this whole SEO marketing and foot traffic and blah, blah, blah? 2020, do you see what you're doing to be more important than ever, or yeah?
Yeah, I do big time. And really the long-term vision of this product is, even if we're not providing the advanced services, we want to be able to hold all these guys accountable. There's so many people out, you can't tell the difference if somebody's, experienced, advertising full-blown agency, or if it's a guy sitting in his basement that is 16 years old and just learned, watching a few hours of YouTube. It's really hard to tell if they have really creative ads and stuff like that. So, we need to be able to hold these guys accountable, and business owners are going to spend real money on advertising and paying these guys high amount of fees. So even if somebody outsources all this stuff we're talking about, mm-hmm. The way Business Warrior is built and the way we're building it in the future is they should be able to use that, and the business owner use Business Warrior to hold these people accountable. So if they're paying $3,000 a month for SEO or something, they should see their score going up. They should see the results. They should see all this other stuff cleaned up and everything else, and nothing should stick out. And if it does, we're going to alert them, and then they can go and contact these guys to fix it. And we're fine with these guys using the tool as well for their clients, because, they should want to knock out the most highest important things for their clients if they really care. So it should be a win-win in the long term.
Absolutely. So with that being said, I'm trying to think if there's any, really areas of Business Warrior or Bluume in general that we really haven't touched on. There's been a lot of great advice, and any areas of the application that we didn't discuss?
No, but I think just our focus is we really just focus on what's going to drive actions from the business owner, whoever's operating the business. So we don't want to just give data. We want to find out what it's going to take for them to really take action on the business on stuff that they probably hate to do.
Well, actually, I actually have one question that I forgot, that is actually pretty basic, so you should be able to answer this pretty quickly. Is this a web portal? Is this an app, Android, iOS? How do you access kind of the dashboard?
Right now, it's a web portal. Right now, we have apps come in, but right now we're just out of beta phase. It's a web portal, but it's mobile optimized and desktop, so you should be able to access it anywhere.
Okay. No,
Um,
very. I should have mentioned that way sooner. So perfect, because hey, what can't access the web? So with that being said, and again, I just had a lot of fun talking to you, and all about this area, because so many people that come on the show, they are running their own small businesses. Whenever we hear about people who come on the show, and listening to that one guy who is doing the rounds on shows like ours, or talking online about a video game that they made themselves, or talking about anything else under the sun that they can do. You can tell that they're stressed. You can tell that they are passionate but stressed, because there's just so many things pulling at their attention. So I don't think I've seen a singular dashboard or a singular service try to put it all together. So that's why I really wanted to have you on the show and talk about this. This is very interesting.
well, thanks for your time. It's been fun. Love chatting with you as well.
Yep, and of course, and we should probably talk about pricing and the free trial and all that good stuff. If people want to find out more, we're going to link to Bluume.com, BLUUME.com. I assume that's okay. And yeah, go ahead and tell the folks about the free trial, about how much it costs, things like that.
Yep, go on there, go to Bluume.com, click for free trial. You put in some basic information. It'll match up to your actual address location if it can find it, and then you'll get a score. If your score is not available immediately, we'll message you when your score is ready. That just depends on some back-end data that we have pulled publicly, and then from there, we follow you around with more steps and ways to improve the business, and it's pretty simple. After 14 days, you have the option of paying $29 a month for it, and no contract, cancel anytime. But the disadvantage of canceling is if you come back to it, then we have to start pulling that data again from scratch. So it's kind of one of those things that it gets better and better over time. The recommendations get better. We learn about you and your business better. Hopefully you're taking more actions and your growth score continues to improve. So.
Perfect. And I have to ask you, just as a personal question to you, Rhett, so many startups, been doing this for so long, a serial entrepreneur. Bluume looks like a great product, but do you see yourself sticking with this, or do you have other things knocking around in your head and you're thinking, well, I'm going to keep doing this, obviously, but I really want to get into X field?
I'm really passionate and excited about this one right now. Obviously, as a serial entrepreneur, I always have other ideas, but right now I am all in on this one right now.
Perfect. Oh, okay. Hey, just had to ask. And so everyone, we've been talking to Rhett Doolittle. He is the CEO of Bluume. You can definitely check it out. Like I said, computeramerica.com. We'll have a link in the show notes. And Rhett, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Computer America.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And until next time, have a great holiday. We'll be sure to catch up with you in a couple of months, see how everything is going. And yeah, very, very, very fun talking to you.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, have a good one.
Have a great
Bye-bye. All right, everyone. And there he goes. Just like that, very, very simple. And as we said before, if you want to check out a link, check out computeramerica.com, and you'll find everything and anything you need to know about, about Bluume. So there you go. And Bluume Business Warrior, that was the application, by the way, if you wanted to, check that out yourself. Seem very I'm stuck in this rut of saying very interesting, and I'm trying to break myself of it, but it's hard. You get into these little speaking habits, and I'm trying to break them. But everyone, thank you for continuing on with us here on Computer America. We are going to go ahead and jump right into computer and technology news, where we have tons and tons of different articles that we can talk about. So everyone, here we go. Computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these. And by the way, if you are trying to find, if you're trying to find news today that isn't about China, Hong Kong, and all the tech companies that are trying to, discuss all of the things that we discussed back on Monday, I think I'm sorry, Tuesday of this week. We had a whole half hour dedicated to that topic. So we've covered it very deeply. I don't feel like revisiting it, but apparently everyone else does. So it would probably be best, we were just talking about SEO. It would probably be best to talk about that, but let's go ahead and talk about other things instead, because I've said my piece, and let's go ahead and move on. Now, let's see. So let's go ahead and find a bunch of topics here. I have them right here in front of me. I'm not stalling for time. Don't worry about it. Let's go ahead and talk about, this is actually pretty interesting. And I'm actually pretty interested in this. Rwanda. How often do we talk about Rwanda and we're not talking about something horrific or tragic or all around just something you don't want to hear about? But this one, hey, you probably do. Rwanda just released the first smartphone made entirely in Africa, which is amazing because even here in the US, we don't really have a smartphone that is made entirely in the United States. We have definitely outsourced that kind of thing. So this is interesting. You don't often think of Africa as a bastion of technology, but obviously if you want to talk about emerging economies, Africa over the next 20 years is going to change the face of commerce, as I think they have like a couple billion. I want to say like the entirety of Africa has like 3 billion people. And it's not just about, impoverished countries and things like that, but think about this. Access to the internet is going to be very, very easy. And it's a matter of what are they going to do when they come on the internet? Are they going to shop on eBay? Are they going to shop at Amazon? Are they going to look at your videos? Or if you're an artist, are they going to be downloading digital versions of your artwork? I mean, from a commerce perspective, oh my God, it's completely revolutionary what happens when you double the user base of the internet. But what about everything else? What if you're entertainment? What if you are running just a video game, service that, of course, it's probably for money. But let's say you're running a video game. What happens then? You have to service this entire place. Obviously, there's going to be big changes in Africa. And one of them that I am happy to see, as much as here on Computer America, we would like everything made in America and everything, and everyone to buy from America. But I think innovation happens best when it's very diverse. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Rwanda's Mara Group has grand ambitions. The company hopes to help turn Rwanda into a regional tech hub. And it just got one step closer to completing this mission, saying that this week the company released 2 smartphones, which if you're watching the video portions here, they look kind of obviously everything looks kind of like an iPhone nowadays, but they look kind of like an iPhone for those of you just listening. Rounded corners, rectangular body, except where an Apple logo would go, you have kind of a silhouette stylized version of a lion, which makes all the sense in the world. And it looks like there's also a fingerprint reader in the back, and as well as a camera. So now the phone is going to be very affordable because obviously, the economy in Africa and certain parts of Africa just are not capable of sustaining a $1,000 phone, let alone $1,500, let alone $700. So you're looking at the Mara X model and the Mara Z model. Both these, there's one's a 16 gig phone, one's a 32 gig phone, and you're looking at about $130 and $190. It's pretty interesting. So the president of Rwanda has announced Africa's first high-tech smartphone factory. And while smartphones are assembled in other African countries, including Egypt, Algeria, and South Africa, they all have assembly plants. According to Reuters, these companies all import the components. But at Mara, they manufacture the phone from the motherboards to the packaging, which is all done in the new factory. So a singular factory handles everything. President Kagame made the announcement in a press conference on Monday at the capital of Kigali. And of course, both run Google's Android operating system. So while the company admits that they are a little more expensive than other options, like the more popular techno brand phones made by a Chinese-owned company, they hope customers are willing to pay a little bit more for quality and made in Africa pride. So made in Africa is definitely a marketing move, but it's a good marketing move. I think that if you're from these countries, you should have a certain sense of pride that they are made locally, they are sourced from local labor, and the money kind of stays within the country instead of being siphoned out to other places. And of course, when you're looking at a $130 phone or a $190 phone, you're not getting the best phone. No offense, it's just not going to happen. But if it's good enough, if the quality is better than every other $130 phone, then you're in a good spot, because that's where people kind of aim for. And so with that being said, the facility is an important step for Rwanda, which has worked to transform itself into an economic innovation leader. They hosted the World Economic Forum in Africa in May 2018, and work is reportedly well underway for the Kigali Innovation Center, which will house innovation labs and more. So there you go. There's a couple tweets out here, more pictures. You can see the president, kind of walking into the factory and, showing off some of the phones. But yeah, not often do you hear about new smartphones, because it's a very tough field to get into. But I think when smartphones specialize within a region, specialize for the much more affordable end, there's a lot more options down there. But there's also kind of this cacophony of cheap Chinese-made phones. So to have some more competition in there, all the best. I really do. I wish them the best, and it sounds like a very important venture for Rwanda. So with that being said, let's go ahead, continue on. How about we talk about... Okay, so that's obviously not going to be very helpful today. Okay. Let's talk about Google. And Google in their Google Stadia product. If you don't recall what Stadia is off the top of your head, it is their soon-to-be released network gaming, or it's obviously a gaming platform, but it allows you to stream video games. And it's been a goal for a lot of different companies to really make the experience something worth playing. The only issue with streaming cloud-based video games is that the input latency can be so bad you make the game unplayable. Or if you have a multiplayer setting, the ability to have the game tell your computer what's going on, you send an input to the server, and the input from the server then goes to everyone else that you're playing with. Even if all that happens in the blink of an eye, even if all that happens in 60 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, 200 extra milliseconds, and in some cases, even worse than that, it's just too long. It just makes the game feel and play horribly. And that's the problem, is that if you don't get that player experience, you're not going to come back and do it again and again. So that's why Stadia has worked on something new. They saying with an interview with Edge, Stadia's VP of Engineering said that the platform will eventually be more responsive than consoles, and while the technology does sound silly, the underlying concept may prove effective, which I've never heard of this. It's a new term, negative latency. We've all heard of zero latency, we've all heard low latency, we've all heard, of course, the dreadful high latency. I guess the difference here is the negative latency, which really just sounds like, reading the future, because hey, if you can't really have negative latency. So let's see what they're talking about. Latency is the thing that gets the most attention, and while it has proven to be more playable, expect further improvements. And this is what the VP of Engineering of Stadia mentioned. Quote, ultimately, we think in a year or two we'll have games that are running faster and feel more responsive in the cloud than they do locally, regardless of how powerful the local machine is. These improvements will, and quote, he said that these improvements will come via a term which sounds rather slippery because it doesn't make any sense, but negative latency. It's a concept by which Stadia can set up a game with a buffer of predicted latency between the server and the player, and then use various methods to undercut it. It can run the game at a super fast frame rate so it can act on player inputs earlier, or it can predict a player's button presses. These tricks can help the game feel more responsive, potentially more so than consoles running locally at 30 frames per second with a wireless controller. So obviously the article itself from Engadget here mentions this. Negative latency moniker definitely sounds far-fetched, but there could be something to the idea of combining high frame rates with a buffer. And with Google's experience in AI and machine learning, it's not out of the question that Stadia could predict button presses. Now, here's my thing. When it comes to predicting button presses, I'm kind of interested. So let's go ahead and take multiplayer completely out of it, because if it's predicting button presses in a multiplayer game, that's essentially the game playing for you. And essentially you will be playing against bots, but you'll be playing against players who are controlling bots. And whichever one can control the bots better is going to win. So that's negative latency with multiplayer. That's how that feels. In a single player game, I guess if the game starts to send the packets and starts to essentially predict that you are going to jump over an obstacle, if you're going to hit an opponent at a certain time, if you're going to do something that they can reasonably predict, and again, this is going to take a massive amount of artificial intelligence, saying that 99.9% of players put down this building in this spot, when they selected, let's say they go into the menu, let's say it's a real-time strategy game. They go into the menu, they pick a building, and they hover over where they want to put it. Before they even put down the building, using artificial intelligence, I guess they could learn that, in 99.9% of cases, the player is about to put this building here. And with that being said, we are going to kind of pre-buffer that input. And as soon as they do it, we're going to carry it out, and it's just going to happen. I guess that's the reasoning behind negative latency, where they're going to try to predict, and really the slowdown, the problem, is when you act unpredictable. And as long as Google's AI is really, and machine learning, I should say, is really up to the task, it shouldn't be that big a deal. But it can be, and I can see where it can be. So Bakar is making a very specific comparison between cloud-based gaming versus console running at 30 frames per second. So obviously a stretch that this will be an apples-to-apples use case in the real world. Even in general, gamers will be raising their eyebrows at the concept of game streaming until they're able to test it in the wild. So with that being said, Google Stadia will launch in November. We'll definitely have to check it out ourselves. But I really feel like that's the kind of service that is going to benefit from a large player base. Being able to, kind of, I don't know, increase the negative latency, but with more player inputs, it's going to really benefit from a lot of people. So we'll see what happens. Negative latency sounds like a really kind of cockamamie term, but maybe it works out really well. We'll have to wait and see. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Let's go ahead and talk about NASCAR. I know, NASCAR, everyone's favorite. Calm down. On a technology show, we just don't get to talk about NASCAR that often. But this one, I think, will make an exception. NASCAR could introduce hybrid race cars by 2022. 2022. Eventually, it even may go full electric, which really, when it comes to race cars, that is kind of the way of the future. I mean, nothing against these engines, and trust me, these cars are engineered to within, almost space grade specifications. These cars are tuned, maintained, designed. Trust me, nothing about these cars is poorly designed. But the benefit, I really do feel like the benefit of electric cars, especially for NASCAR, when you think about things like refueling and the acceleration, top speed, all that kind of thing, time and time again, having these gas motors really tends to be a problem because electric cars are better in acceleration, they're better in braking, they're better in distances. Obviously being able to just kind of put more gas in the tank is going to help with these 500 lap races. But at the same time, think about it, if you could design cars that have battery packs that could be swapped almost instantly, then hey, that's even faster than gasoline. So let's go ahead and talk about this. NASCAR has been talking about hybrids for a while, but it has kept quiet about a timeline. Now the association says that hybrid tech could show up in vehicles by 2022, saying that, quote, "We travel the world visiting other sanctioning bodies and are not ignorant to the fact that the world's going towards more hybrid technology." That was the NASCAR Senior Vice President for Racing Development, Mr. John Probst. Now, NASCAR is still determining how to use hybrids. It may be better suited for shorter courses with more turns and braking, which would help with the regenerative braking to use. The hybrid tech would likely be used in parallel with internal combustion engines to add power rather than solely improve gas mileage. For instance, Probst said that the hybrid tech might provide a kind of strategic supercharge that could help provide extra power to complete a pass. Interesting. So almost like NOS, but instead of nitrous oxide, you're talking about, battery. He said that NASCAR is pushing to go full electric too, but the association is taking it one step at a time. Its next-gen car race is just completed its first on-track test and is set to debut at the Daytona 500 in 2021. Then, of course, after that, we'll likely see some type of hybrid tech. NASCAR isn't alone. IndyCar is planning this as well with a 900 horsepower hybrid. Cars are going to get faster and better. They're going to accelerate better. Hopefully that means that they'll handle better. And overall, I hope that safety goes up with this because as the cars are going to be traveling faster and faster and faster, I don't know what kind of safety measures you can put into a hybrid car that you couldn't in a traditional car. But hey, the arena of car racing is not going to be left behind when it comes to technology. So 2022, you can look for some even more high performance vehicles. Although I do got to say, just thinking about it, I've been to a couple races myself and feeling like, I'm not talking about hearing, but feeling the roar of the engine as they all zoom by you. It really almost like vibrates your lungs. If you were to take away those high horsepower engines and you only had electric vehicles, yeah, maybe you'd hear the whine and the whine of the engine, or I should say rather the whine of kind of everything turning within the car and the tires on the pavement. But overall, it would be an almost eerily silent event compared to a traditional NASCAR event. I don't know. Would they have to add the noise and kind of add the vibration as cars come around the corner, or would those cars be completely silent, which would almost be spooky, or or maybe even sadly not as fun if you happen to be there. 2022, mark your calendars. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Okay, let's talk about not that one. Okay. All right, fine, we'll do that one. Sorry, I totally should have came more prepared. Our next story is coming to us from Engadget as well, but this one HBO, saying that HBO will display mental health notices ahead of some shows, which we've seen a number of shows back in the past, and I'm not going to name them off the top of my head, but there have been shows from HBO, from Netflix that, the article mentions it by name, 13 Reasons Why, that some are controversial. Some claim that the way that they address mental health in these shows just doesn't seem to really take into consideration that people watching it are going to have similar feelings as those portrayed on screen. So obviously, here we go. HBO is going to display mental health notices ahead of some shows. And overall, I think this is probably a step in the right direction. I've had strong feelings about, kind of mental health in the past. And it's not that I don't believe that getting help for mental health is a weakness. I don't believe that, mentioning to people that get help. But I also feel like there's this almost tendency to kind of say, well, you're depressed, you're suicidal, you're this, you're that, or the other. You should talk to a professional. And then everyone pats themselves on the back. They throw up the National Suicide Hotline number and they say, good job, everyone. We have solved the problem. And really, no action gets taken because I think getting help for problems such as that are much more involved. And it's not just about, it's access to information, but it's also access to empathy. And, just kind of saying it and actually participating and living in it, or living those values are two completely different things. Unfortunately, some people think that they are one and the same. So anyways, HBO will display mental health notices in front of some shows. Just like you would in front of, gratuitous violence or graphic content warnings, now you have a mental health warning as well. So just to throw that one out there. Let's see if we can find one more story just to take us out, out of today and take us out on a high note. Okay. Let's see. So today, let's go ahead and talk about Waymo. This seems like a good enough thing. For those of you who don't know, 2019, and we're fast approaching the end of 2019. We have like 2.5 months left. We are running out of time. 2019 was the only Elon Musk's prediction for when we would have fully autonomous cars. And I've always had it in my head, this was when I could expect to, if not own one, at least drive in one. So let's go ahead and talk about this and see where Waymo is. Waymo tells riders to get ready for fully driverless rides. Unfortunately, this will be kind of like a taxi service within city limits, which are some of the hardest driving conditions out there, don't get me wrong, but it's only going to be in select areas. So Waymo will begin offering driverless rides to ordinary people in the Phoenix area, the company revealed Wednesday to participants in its early rider program, saying that Waymo first began testing fully driverless rides in November 2017, and the company had planned to begin offering driverless rides to paying customers in 2018. The company even made a commercial starring Jimmy Kimmel, but hey, didn't happen. Saying that, but now Waymo seems to be dipping its toe back into the driverless waters, and the company will soon start allowing ordinary Arizonians Arizonans, didn't mean to offend, I apologize, to ride in self-driving cars that have no one behind the wheel. Check that out. The email reportedly went to participants in the early rider program, as we mentioned, and a hand-picked groups of beta testers who signed strict non-disclosure agreements. That worked out well for them. So while there won't be anyone in the driver's seat, there may be a representative in the vehicle to monitor its progress, which I can almost guarantee. I don't know the local legislation behind behind Phoenix, but most places have at least almost like a monitor who, even if they don't have the ability or the intention to fully kind of take over the vehicle on a moment's notice, they're at least there to say, figure out what's happening, what's going wrong, and hit like an emergency stop button if something goes wrong. So they're saying that hey, we're getting closer to fully self-driving cars. We're getting there. Phoenix, Arizona, if you're in the area, maybe check it out just for fun, just for a time. It's going to be like any other ride-hailing service. So there you go. Everyone, that's it for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank Bluume for coming on the show, talking with us. It was a lot of fun. And Business Warrior, give it a try yourself if you run your own business. It could definitely help you out. Everyone, computeramerica.com. Until next time, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.